A mutated form of rabies known as mad dog disease will soon spread throughout the world, quickly transitioning from animals to people. A person who is bitten can pass out in as little as 90 seconds. Ferocious, with over 7 billion people already dead or infected. The ones who end up zombies are extremely violent and have a high pain tolerance, which indicates they are fervent murderers. The world turns into a dystopian no man's land and fierce zombie swarms become the standard. In an underground atomic base, the military has accumulated all the solid survivors that they could locate. The warriors have additionally collaborated with researchers from the focuses for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to conduct experiments and discover a treatment. Anyway, to do as such, they must first locate patient 0 because their blood contains the answer. They keep a bundle of zombies kept in cages and regularly question them to find out where everything is. Morgan is a civilian who was infected and bitten, but he did not change. It appears his blood is safe against the infection, yet they haven't had the option to make an immunization with it. Morgan can understand and communicate with zombies because of that bite, so that he can assist with the research. He has joined Dr. Gina's team. The warriors get a seething zombie for questioning, strapping him to a chair in a glass cell. The cycle begins by playing some music, which is difficult for zombies. The tainted person wriggles in torment on the chair as he tries unsuccessfully to break the chains. When the zombie has suffered sufficiently, Morgan switches off the music and starts communicating in the snarling language to speak with the fellow while sending notes to Gina through a tablet. Subsequent to nicknaming the person Joe, that's what Morgan discovers he's from Minnesota and is one of the initial not many individuals who got contaminated. Trying to get in touch with Joe to make him say more, Morgan concedes that occasionally he encounters extraordinary inclinations as well. Furthermore, starts discussing what's left of the world, saying he despises it here however much the zombies do. At that point, Colonel Knox utilizes a mouthpiece to interfere with the cross-examination, which sends Joe into another seething fit. Disappointed, Morgan passes on the glass cell to give Joe time to quiet down. Anyway, Knox considers this hold on to be an exercise in futility and urges Morgan to proceed with the cross-examination. In the cell, Joe is getting more insane constantly, which irritates Knox such a lot of that he winds up shooting him in disappointment. Gina and Morgan are furious right away because Joe could have given them more information. Furthermore, Gina takes steps to have Knox eliminated from his order on the off chance that he mishandles his clout in her lab of all time again. Morgan punches the cell, demonstrating he to be sure has a few vicious urges that he should keep contained each day. A while later, Morgan conceals in the restroom and attempts to quiet down. Gina quickly locates him and offers her comfort, so Morgan takes advantage of the opportunity to rant about the circumstance and the pressure he's under. Morgan declines Gina's offer of medication and admits that he has been experiencing bad dreams about his better half, who is nibbled as well. The two of them concede they miss the basic life and wind up doing the filthy in the washroom. After a few minutes, Knox observes them leaving the restroom and mocks Gina for her bond with Morgan. So Gina blames him for being desirous and says Knox could never get an opportunity with her. Morgan, on the other hand, heads to the underground cells and makes a brief stop at a specific cell to the rear. His wife Janet, who was also bitten, turns out to be the zombie there. As him, Morgan gives him an infusion with a serum in view of his blood, which doesn't fix her yet, essentially dials back the contamination and keeps her clear. At first, Janet smacks it away. However, after Morgan implores her to participate, she says that she actually recollects the music and gets the injection. The following day, the fighters bring to the phone a zombie nicknamed Pete. At the point when he fights against the bindings until he frees himself and the chair is about to bind him, attacks the personnel. Dr. Scooter rushes into the cell as the men struggle to contain him. To help, just for his arm to get chomped simultaneously. Scooter is immediately taken to the team clinical room, and Bike continues to ask them not to allow him to turn. They infuse him with the serum also. Gina removes Bike's arm just before the 90 seconds run off. At first it appears everyone rejoices that he is fine, but Scooter suddenly experiences shock, forcing the group to rush to secure him before he changes. They aren't quickly enough and Bike sits up snarling, so Knox kills him and says that is what Bike needed when the others blow up. Morgan and Gina must choose the option to acknowledge he's right. Later, while the warriors wash the cell, Knox becomes inebriated in the toilet. Gina has a breakdown in private, yet Morgan tracks down her and solaces her through it. After that, they pay a visit to the grave of Scooter's son and present him with a cupcake for his birthday. The following day, they take a stab at cross-examining Pete once more. Morgan is furious over the deficiency of Bike and keeps using the music to torture Pete for a longer period of time and repeatedly turning it on and off just to screw with him. At the point when the inquiry's at last beginning, Peter shares he's from Minnesota and that he contracted the infection in October, but he won't elaborate. Morgan snaps, becoming angrier, and he points his gun at Pete, who continues to deny the inquiry and simply responds, "Do it." Frustrated, Morgan leaves the cell. Later, Gina and Morgan meet with General Penetrate and make sense of that both Joe and Pete were contaminated in Minnesota by an early gathering. Gina needs to extend the inquiry into Minnesota since the possibilities of patient zero being there appear to be high. Knox promptly whines about the idea, claiming that it would only result in an additional loss of soldiers. However, Gina persists, bringing up that the zombies have developed into a more canny and perilous variety, appearing their essential assaults. In addition, Morgan reminds them that zombies cannot lie. In the end, a search in Minnesota is authorized by Pierce. After the gathering, Morgan presents to Janet another infusion. As they talk, Janet acknowledges Morgan is having blended sentiments about her and Gina. However, Morgan swears that Janet is his beginning and end. Janet goes crazy as she requests to be delivered, saying she would maybe be free external over protected in a hellhole. Additionally, she mentions how much she values the human experiences such as crying. Morgan takes her hand and encourages her to never give up because the infusions will help. Morgan continues to experience flashbacks to his previous life with Janet. Janet wanted to wait until the right surrogate was found, but he kept insisting that he wanted a child. The couple was still exceptionally content and even had their own code to show their adoration. Later, Gina takes yet another sample of Morgan's blood while ranting about the reason why just he is invulnerable. She's given a couple of arrangements of shot rodents, yet nothing has worked up to this point and the rats continue to kill each other. Morgan's safe blood can lessen the viral levels in the body, dial back disease, and quiet the hostility. However, the impact just goes on for 5 minutes. They're a long way from getting an immunization yet, so Gina brings up Janet's recuperation isn't insured and Morgan gets upset. At that point, Gina decides to admit her affection for him, but Morgan simply leaves the room. Morgan has dreams that night about the incident. Janet and he had driven through the city. 2 zombies jumped on their car when they stopped at the traffic lights and broke their windows. Morgan continued forward until the zombies vanished, but the vehicle came to a stop even more. Both of them were bitten by zombies as they jumped onto the vehicle and reached through the windows. In the present, screaming, Morgan emerges from the nightmare. Gina finds out later that she is pregnant with Morgan's kid. She can't stop crying because she doesn't think Morgan will return her sentiments. In the meantime, Knox and his men transport the deceased soldiers from the search mission to be slain by fire. The soldiers get ready to move the bodies after paying their respects, only for a dead man to unexpectedly awaken and assault. It turns out he's a non-military personnel zombie who dressed as an officer to invade the base. As the animal beginnings killing the doctors and the warriors one by one decisively, Knox sneaks around to get a weapon, trusting that the right second will strike. The caution moans all through the labs and soon more troopers race to the crematorium, where Knox is searching for the enemy that hid out. As a result, Knox is attacked by a newly transformed teammate, shoots him quickly before he can continue moving. At that point, the invaded zombie leaps out and attempts to go after him. Yet when he's going to chomp Knox, Morgan comes in to pull the animal back. The fighters need to shoot him, but Morgan requests that they leave him alive for cross-examination. The infected are then shocked when Knox points his gun at them, prompting them to surrender and inquire. To converse with Morgan, the zombie is taken to the glass cell and the music is turned on. Anyway, the person isn't annoyed. In fact, all he does is sit there and light a cigarette. If it wasn't for his different shaded eyes, no one would have the option to tell he isn't human. The troops Morgan gives him the nickname the Professor because she found a campus ID on him. The questioning begins. However, the teacher isn't threatened and replies with obscure way of thinking. He concedes he's been looking for Morgan, who evidently is extremely well known in the zombie local area. At the point when Morgan asks him for what reason, the professor explains that, like humans, each zombie is unique, and that music has no effect on him, guiding out that Morgan's capacity toward converse with zombies is his own kind of disease uniqueness. This outrages Morgan, who demands he isn't a zombie. Additionally, the professor says that the zombies are an additional developed animal types than people, who obliterate at whatever point they feel like it as well. He then explains how he contracted the disease. On the day in question, he was giving a lecture at the university. Calls kept coming in from his better half, so he went to the hall to take it. At the point when his better half enlightened him regarding the mayhem taking over the city, the teacher heard a clamor in the homeroom and turned around to find a crowd of zombies breaking in and going after everybody. The teacher attempted to take off, yet soon the zombies were racing through the passageways and contaminated understudies bounced on him, messing with him. His organs changed, but his mind was still clear enough to allow him to return home. However, when he saw his wife, also his little girl, the infection set off his inward fury and constrained him to eat them both. Morgan is dissatisfied with the narrative and pointing out his lack of control, but the professor just repeats that zombies have transcended the constraints of mankind. He does not believe that such a thing exists, as a patient zero, and overlooks the inquiries to yell against the public authority and the framework. This makes Morgan at last snap and punch him prior to leaving the cell. After a brief moment to quiet down, Morgan gets back to the cell and acknowledges a cigarette, professing to be cordial. The teacher prods him by getting some information about Janet and says she needn't bother with a fix since zombies are actually the remedy for infection in humans. As the philosophical meandering aimlessly proceeds, Morgan understands that the teacher is making him throw away life deliberately. Getting dubious, he utilizes a gadget to filter the zombie, and when he doesn't find anything, he races to the cells. He finds Pete lays out his theory that Pete was deliberately taken captive as part of a scheme. At the point when Pete understands Morgan will hurt him to make him talk, he attempts to self-erase and falls oblivious. Morgan utilizes the scanner once more and gets a sign, so he opens a scar on Pete's body and sees as a covered-up tracker. It turns out that Pete deliberately let the soldiers capture him so that the different zombies could find the area of the base, affirming they're becoming more brilliant and arranging to strike. Pierce orders a complete lockdown after Morgan alerts Pierce to the imminent danger of the ground. Tragically, the zombies get inside before they can wrap up getting the doorways, and soon, refugees are brutally attacked, causing a bloodbath. The cell is snuck into by an animal area and frees every prisoner, expanding the army even more. The warriors have a go at starting to shoot. In any case, their numbers aren't sufficient and the zombies focus on progressing while at the same time killing everybody. Before long, the crowd races through the passages and the labs are likewise attacked, making everybody begin running in alarm as additional individuals wind up dead. Knox leads Gina along a secure escape path, and Penetrate attempts to follow them as the zombies pursue them. Anyway, Knox kills Penetrate so he has time to get away with Gina in the elevator while the zombies stop feeding on him. A shocked Gina affronts Knox's activities. However, Knox says it was an essential penance for endurance. Gina is furious, stops the elevator and fires his weapon. She needs to return to the lab to get her examples since her exploration is their main expectation. However, Knox denies and attempts to stop her. In the battle, the weapon is shot by mistake, resulting in Knox's death. The base's bloodbath continues in all directions. In the rat lab, a scientist tries to hide. Despite this, a zombie locates her and immediately attacks her, thumping down the enclosures simultaneously. The infected rats are now also on the loose. Meanwhile, Morgan hurries to the cells to free Janet and take off together. Morgan gets a fire hatchet on the way. Furthermore, in the long run they catch Gina, who doesn't believe it's smart to free Janet considering the infusions were impermanent. Anyway, Morgan will not leave without her. That instant, Gina shoots the zombie that appears behind them right away and then declares that she will be recovering her examples. Morgan and Janet accompany her to the refrigerator in the lab while Gina grabs what she needs, and another zombie comes at her, only to be killed by Morgan's axe right away. The professor simultaneously lets out a very loud roar, prompting a group of zombies to rush to their aid. They climb into the vents to return to the trio, careful to stay away from some potentially hazardous wires in the process. As they slither away, Gina sees the outcast region through the meshes and is frightened to find a total slaughter. Their weight makes the mesh fall, and presently the zombies know where they exist. The triplet attempts to continue to move and finds the way impeded by a zombie rodent that jumps toward them in an attempt to attack, but Janet swiftly seized it and killed it with her own hands. After that, the zombies are beginning to creep through the vents as well. As soon as the group arrives, Morgan has to kick a zombie until the vent breaks, dropping the animal to the ground. Morgan nearly falls too, but Gina arrives just in time to save him. In the end, they at long last arrive at the parking area, where the teacher is sitting tight for them. He makes sense of he came to the base to kill Morgan since his blood could keep the zombies from having a future, calling him the zombies form of a patient zero. Morgan furthermore, the teacher begin to battle and the ladies attempt to help. Yet the teacher effectively overwhelms them both. The men continue to fight, using every object in the room, and the professor knocks them out. Morgan was knocked down, but he quickly got up and pushed the professor back, impaling him on a pipe. Morgan is also hurt in the process, and the professor roars once more to bring an enormous swarm. The triplet begins running, yet when they arrive at the entryway, Janet reports she's remaining behind to dial the crowd back. Morgan declines, so Janet uncovers she can detect Gina is pregnant to divert him and locks the entryway. After briefly weeping for his wife, Morgan escapes with Gina through a crisis burrow that drops them in the forest. The number of zombies around, yet Morgan is certain they'll make it. His bicycle is covered up neighboring, so the couple uses it to accelerate through the forest as the far-off zombies begin to pursue them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.